A man is recovering from an attack by a group of otters on Tanjung Beach 2 weeks ago. And so far, there have been at least 2 other reports of humans being injured by otters in the past 3 years. Now, for more, our reporter, Rebecca Metteo, is in the studio with us. Rebecca, it's great to have you here with us. Can you remind us again what happened to this man?
Right, Shah. We first heard of this incident about 2 weeks ago from a tip-off. So on the day of the incident, my colleague actually went down to speak to the man. So we decided to give him some space to recover. And after some thoughts, he thinks that he should open up and share more about the story with us. And so let's take a look at the story to find out what happened on that day. And some of the images are in black and white because of it's graphic. Yeah.
I felt one bite me here. You can see all the wounds. Bit me here in my calf, here in my thighs, and then one of them, who was the one leading the charge, actually came up close to my face, right? Because I was already down, right? So went up to my face, and basically, as a self-defense, I tried to push it away, but it bit my finger along the way. But I managed to push them out.
David was attacked by a gang of otters 2 weeks ago while heading home from a jog. They left him with gaping wounds on his thigh, calf and finger. He needed a 3-hour surgery, around 10 stitches and 5 days in the hospital, leaving him with a bill of tens of thousands of dollars. Doctors say his finger could take up to 6 months to recover. David still doesn't know why the otters turned violent.
But one of them just, I suppose, looked at me. They had this funny sound. They were almost like, squeaking. I wouldn't say barking, but they just got this loud noise. And then one of them just turned at me and literally just did a beeline straight, towards me. And then the 2 followed. So they were running in almost like a triangle.
I went to the spot where he was ambushed along Tanjung Beach. People tell me this gate is used by many residents to get to these private homes from the beach. It was around here that David recounted the moment 3 grown otters unexpectedly approached him. He described how they swiftly attacked, catching him off guard and causing him to fall. According to him, all this happened in a matter of minutes. The culprits have been seen in the area.
I did see a family cross the road up here once, and there was quite a big group. I forgot about that. There's about 5 or 6 of them.
Sometimes we saw them at the Cape Royal area, and another area of the condo there, like not really often.
The assault by the furry critters has left emotional scars as well.
I haven't been back there, to be honest. And at some point, until someone tells me that it's safe, I'm not going to let my children go there. Because the size of these otters are they're adult otters, like huge. They're quite heavy and they're quite strong as well.
The management for the area has since put up signs to tell people what not to do if they bump into otters, such as no touching, no chasing, no flash photography, and not going too close.
So this is the 3rd attack in about 3 years, Rebecca. If we look at Singapore, a built-up environment like Singapore, why do you think this attack happened? What may have instigated it?
Right, Shah, to answer your question, I believe we need to understand a little bit more about otters. So specifically, smooth-coated otters are found in Singapore. So I actually spoke to a few of the animal experts, and what they told me is that otters with young pups, typically about 1 to 2 months old, they tend to be a little bit more protective of their babies, and that means that they can get defensive and when they feel threatened. And otters can have up to about 5 pups, and the parents would look after them for several months. They can be found in mangroves, river banks, as well as mud flats. And because they are highly social animals, so they actually hunt and travel in packs of about 4 to 12. And that also means that they could attack in packs. So don't forget, they can grow up to about 120 centimeters, and that's about the height of a primary school kid if you think about it. And they're also around up to 11 kilograms heavy in weight. Now, for the incident, David told me that he did not see any pups on the ground on the day. But from what I understand from my sources is that they have seen a family with young pups in that area. And since then, David also told me that the MParks have been in touch with him. And from what I understand, the MP for the area, Rachel Ong, will also be paying him a visit very soon, her team and herself. So earlier on, Shah, you mentioned that there are about 2 and 3 attacks now in this past 3 years, right? So the one that people will likely remember is the British man who was just on his morning walk at the Singapore Botanic Gardens, right? And he was ambushed by about 20 otters. But I must say that such incidents are quite rare. The otters only attack when they feel threatened. And I think more commonly we would remember the otters invading homes, eating pet fishes from ponds, right?
Yep. I remember that one. So given these recent attacks, Rebecca, is the government planning to keep an eye on the otter population?
Actually, I must say that otters being back on our shores is actually a very good sign because that signals that our ecosystem is healthy. You know, otters have had a long history in Singapore, and in fact, they disappeared for a while, but they only started coming back about a decade ago because our water bodies became cleaner. So if you ask me if the government will resort to culling the otters, I would think the answer is probably no. In fact, the government has an otter working group that looks after this monitored numbers of endangered native animals in Singapore. They are formed by NParks, nature groups, as well as academic groups. And this same team also studies otters because they are considered as critically endangered to Singapore. And one time, they even rehomed the otters because there were some conflicts with humans in the neighborhoods. So I followed this team to find out how the otters travel. And interestingly, I understand that these otter families are actually breaking down into smaller groups. Let's find out what this means. You're looking at one of the largest otter gangs in Singapore. 10 members with 4 4-month-old pups out hunting for a breakfast of fish. I had to wake up really early to tag along this team, whose mission is to count otters as part of the 3rd census in 7 years.
Otter population, we do a count or a census which is triangulated and validated with evidence and all that, only once every few years. So in 2017 there are about almost 80 otters, and then subsequently in 2021 there's about 170.
There is no double counting because the team recognizes otters by distinct characteristics on their fur or bodies. The biggest family ever recorded had around 20 members, but things could have changed.
But in the past few years, these large groups seem to have fissioned, so they've become much smaller. So it could be that the resources in the waterway, all these fish populations, not as high as they used to be. There's also competition for space.
This might mean more group wars with otters killing each other for territory. It's also why Siva thinks the otter population is beginning to stagnate. But the full picture will be only known next year when the survey is completed. Meantime, otters seem to be spreading out to more places. Many are already familiar with routes for finding their way deeper inland.
So they'll use the waterways that you see right behind us, like all the canals and the rivers that are nearby behind us that we walk along just now. So they use all these waterways to get from place to place. So there are areas that they will stop to hunt and fish, or areas that they may come up to actually sprain as a sprain spot behind us. So this is to mark their territory.
It's probably why more people are spotting otters. The National Parks Board says it received 208 pieces of feedback, 305 in 2021 and 440 on average between 2022 to 2023.
In other places, your paths may cross, and otters in Singapore, the ones that we see typically are the ones that are quite used to people. So they are habituated and they treat us just like the rest of the surroundings. So we can get quite close, or they could get quite close to us.
NParks says one outcome of monitoring the otter population and movements is so it can take action to preempt or mitigate conflict when needed.
So as you said earlier, Rebecca, in your story, you said no touching, no flash photography, and don't get too close to these mammals. I mean, they really sound like they love their privacy here. But I do understand that you saw some people getting too close to them when you were out.
Sure, Singaporeans love these cute otters. So while I was on the field trip, there were people passing by, and naturally they will stop and look at the otters, and then they will take photos and videos of them. But at some point, I noticed that some of the people watching the otters are actually getting too close to them, and some ignored advice to stay away. Let's watch this clip, for example.
The otters have babies with them, so be careful. Yeah.
Now, Shah, as you saw from the clip, right, the otters did not attack, but this may not always be the case. There are signs to warn people, but I guess people just perhaps sometimes do not care enough because they don't see the danger coming yet. And in fact, when I spoke to the Otter working group, they told me that this actually happens quite frequently on the ground. People just think that it's fine to be very close to the otters and not give them space, and some of them even try to chase the animals away.
So how then should we behave around otters, Rebecca?
Right. Shah, you mentioned it just now. No touching, give them space, and also don't be too close to them. I spoke to Wildlife Group Acres, and they told me that a good gate should be about 5 to 6 meters away from them. Now, David was about 4 meters away from the otters at that point in time. And also not to scare them, don't use any flash photography, as you mentioned. And if you have dogs, make sure to keep them away from them, because dogs can get quite curious, and otters, by that kind of action, they may feel threatened. And earlier on you saw in the story I mentioned something about sprains, and so sprains are essentially feces left behind by the otters to mark their territory. So if you see a fresh one, chances are that they might be nearby, but it's not always that these sprains will be visible. So if all else fails, what can you then? I spoke to an expert for this.
If you're in an unfortunate situation where if the otters are already in the process of attacking you, then the best thing to do is just move away as quickly as possible. I wouldn't suggest even thinking of defending yourself by attacking them back, because it may not be a single otter. It could be a group of them. So just try to run away or get away as quickly as possible in the safest way possible.
Right, Shah. Actually, Kalai told me that a lot of Singaporeans still don't know how to behave around animals like otters and wildlife for that matter. And he says that, while these animals are adorable, they are very powerful animals as well. And he thinks that there's still a long way to go to raise awareness on how people should behave around wild animals, otters, in an urban city like Singapore.
I know it's hard to not do that because these animals are really cute, but those are very good advice. Rebecca, thank you very much for speaking with us. That was our reporter, Rebecca Metteo, who looked into the cases of otter attacks in Singapore.